What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another video. I thought today we would do a subscriber giveaway, and more on that in a second. But as part of that, I thought we would pull down some of my other bootlegs. I've got a few examples here, one that we've already covered, but I've got a Hungarian bootleg Luke Skywalker, as well as some Polish figures for the same character. Some Polish Zuckuss or Forlam, depending on who you're talking to, the Biker Scout, as well as Chewbacca. So most of these are Polish bootlegs, which is the vast majority of my collection, but I've got a few examples here that I think will be fun to look at. We're going to start really quickly with this one, and we just covered this in a recent video, but this is my 2000s era Russian bootleg Bossk in the hot pink flight suit. This was probably made in like 2003 to 2006 by the company called Oritet. I've got plenty of videos up on the channel covering Oritet bootlegs in more detail. But the reason I'm showing this again is because Patreon supporter and good friend of mine, Matthew K, sent over this example. And so this is 100% complete in a little baggie here. He ordered a Russian bootleg Oritet Chewbacca, and Gonzalo's Warehouse, who, he's actually a good friend of mine, and he accidentally sent over this Bossk, and he said, no problem, keep the Bossk, and I will send you the Chewbacca. Well, Matthew was kind enough to send this to me, so I'm going to give this away at Matthew's request on the channel. And so this is, these were made in a roughly 2003, 2006-ish, before Oritet went out of business in 2006 after the owner's passing. They're based on the Power of the Force 2 Star Wars mold, and this is 100% complete with both weapons, as you can see here, the blaster rifle as well as the blaster pistol. So I'm going to give this away on the channel. Thank you again to Matthew. He's been a long time subscriber and Patreon supporter, so thank you again, and he's a good buddy of mine. And anyone in the world is eligible. Same as always, just leave a comment or a question, like the video, and be a subscriber, and then I'll do a drawing probably next week. As a reminder, I also still have a giveaway going as part of my video from Wednesday of last week with my epic mail call courtesy of Chet Osterman. He gave me a VC-240 501st Legion Clone Trooper, as well as the reissue of VC-113 Republic Trooper. So both of those are still live right now. I'm going to shut down the giveaway probably in the next day or two, do the drawing, and then we'll announce the winners for those two items in a subscriber Q&A video that will probably go up on Sunday. So that's enough channel detail. Let's just, while we're on the subject, let's just take a look at a few other bootlegs in my collection. A few of you have asked over the years, do you have any Hungarian bootlegs? And I do. I only have one, and that is this incomplete Luke Skywalker Farm Boy. I bought this on eBay from a seller in Hungary. This was probably 2 or 3 years ago at least. I'd say at least 3 years ago, but this is a 1987 Hungarian bootleg Luke Skywalker graded 75+, and I say it's incomplete because these originally came on a card on a stapled blister with a lightsaber as well as a pistol. And I do not have the accessories. The accessories are very expensive, but this item was sold kind of as is. What's unique about this one is that he's got complete thumbs. His thumbs have not broken off. These the plastic used to make these Hungarian bootlegs is very, very fragile, and so I had CAS very bracket the arms to keep them in place because they are very loosey-goosey, and the thumbs especially break very, very easily. But as you can see, it's a nice kind of rudimentary but much better quality than the Polish figures for these Hungarian bootlegs that were made circa 1987. And then while we're at it, I kind of did a layer here. It's like an onion. I'm peeling off the layers. And behind each character, I've got some other examples. And this is a Polish bootleg Farm Boy that's static, unarticulated, which all of the Polish bootleg Farm Boys were unarticulated. These came out in the mid-1980s. And this is unarticulated, graded 60+. And this is kind of more in keeping with the traditional Kenner color motif, as well as this one. This is another one I've got that's in a little bit rougher condition, but still a really nice example. This one's got gold pants and bright yellow hair, as you can see there. This one's graded 50, and I think it's mainly because of the discoloration to the plastic, or the rubber, excuse me, around that tunic. Here's the back of the figure there. Pretty good shape on the back. And then the last one in terms of my Luke Farm Boy bootlegs is this one. This is kind of a unique one. I picked this one up in the bootleg group on Facebook, I believe from a gentleman named Jason. Don't quote me on that. But this was such a unique color scheme, and the price was right. I call this one my emo Luke Skywalker. He's got very black hair and blue and silver paint applications, but a really cool figure. This one's graded 60 as well. Very tough to find these Lukes in kind of near mint plus condition. There's a few collectors out there like Lee M, who watches the channel, and a few other guys. Steve D, he's got some just incredible bootleg Lukes, but mine are all kind of lower grade, but I just think it's cool to just have a few of them. And then my Hungarian Luke, which is a really nice example there. Next up, I've got Zuckuss. And this one I picked up from Drew T, who is a good buddy, and he sold me this one for a very fair price. This is a first-generation Zuckuss Polish bootleg. So these came out in the kind of, I'd say, 1985-ish range. And what was great about this one is that it included a first-generation weapon. Very tough to get the weapons. The weapons sometimes can go for more money than the figures. And I've seen a few sales here recently where these weapons are going for $200 or $300 now. So the colored weapons are usually to my knowledge, are all first-generation weapons. The later ones that were kind of paired with the articulated third gens, which I'll show you. I've got an example of one in a second. Those were all black, to my knowledge. But the early first generation, you could find all kinds of different colors. And I love the color scheme on this one. The bright orange paint applications really kind of set it off. And it's kind of a metallic greenish blue, kind of a steel, I guess more of like a steel blue. But there are a more greenish tint to some of these first generation Zuckuss figures. This one's graded 75. But really cool to have that one complete with the weapon. And then I've had this one a lot longer. This one is a third generation Zuckuss with the third generation weapon. So this is more in keeping with the types of weapons that were paired with the third generation figures. To my knowledge, none of the third generation figures actually came with weapons. The weapons were sold in separate baggies, kind of overstock baggies in big bunches. And a lot of them are G.I. Joe Polish bootleg weapons, but this one is definitely, very, very much in keeping with the vintage Kenner kind of mold. And this one's got very bright gold, very bright yellow. There is a much more difficult to find lime green one that's a third generation. I would love to add that one to my collection, but it's gotten so expensive now that I probably will never get it. But this gold one is really nice. And this is one of the most common color combinations for those third generation Zuckuss, but this one's graded 80 plus. And then I've got a couple of static Zuckai, and these are the very common colors. There are also some very, very uncommon rubber colors that these came in, but this is just the gray and kind of the darker black, or it's either a dark gray or like a black, and then you got the lighter gray. And these are graded 80 and 70 respectively. This 70 grade is way too low. I don't know why that got a 70, but it is what it is. It all depends on what grader you're getting that day. But a couple of really cool static bootlegs, and these kind of came out a little bit later than the first generation figures, but still pretty cool to see. And I've seen some greens and blues, all kinds of great colors. It's almost, as I've talked about on the channel at length, it's almost infinite collectability with these Polish bootleg figures, and they've really skyrocketed in price over the last couple of years. So I'm very fortunate to have the ones I do, because they've just gotten so expensive that I haven't bought maybe one or two in the last couple of years, just because they've gotten so expensive. But next up, I've got the Biker Scout. We're going to start off with two of the static bootlegs. The Biker Scout is one of the more expensive Polish figures, both articulated or unarticulated. These are the unarticulated figures that kind of came in the same series as the unarticulated Zuckuss. And they are becoming so expensive because there's a lot of focus collectors for the Biker Scout bootleg. This one's in kind of a greenish tint with gold paint accents. I believe I picked this one up on eBay, but don't quote me on that. That one's graded 80. But these have easily doubled or even tripled in price over the last couple of years, and they've just gotten really, really expensive. Most of the third generation figures, and even some of the first generation figures, they use the same arms as this one. And this is a third generation Biker Scout in a very cool gray and black paint scheme. I always call this one my stealth biker. I could see this guy being like part of the night ops team for the Imperials. and going out during night operations. But I love that color scheme, and this is not a very uncommon one either. This is a pretty easy one to find with some patience. But this one's in excellent condition and graded 85. The third generation figures, such as the one you see here, kind of came out in 1995-ish. There was also a second generation that's kind of a hybrid between the really high quality paint applications of these and the really poor paint applications for the first gen. So the second gens came out in kind of a 1991 time frame. But these arms and this arm mold and leg mold were reused on almost every single character, either for the Biker Scout or for the TIE Fighter pilot. But it's got a very distinctive kind of armor for the shoulders as well as knee pads. And if you look at any kind of third generation Polish bootleg, almost all of them either have these arms and legs or the ones used for the TIE Fighter pilot. But this is a really clean example. This is one of the very first Polish bootlegs I picked up. I probably paid no more than 75 or 100 bucks for it, so it was a good deal at the time. Next up, I do got one Mexican figure. This is a really great Mexican bootleg, early 1980s Biker Scout. These are becoming very tough to find. They've come back down in price significantly. It seems like all Mexican bootlegs right now, because of the counterfeit bootlegs, so to speak, if there's such a thing. There's lots of modern customs that are kind of reproducing the 1980s look and fooling a lot of collectors out there. So you got to be really careful on eBay, because 99% of the stuff that you see on eBay is modern custom stuff that's made within the last year or two, or even in the last month. But this one I picked up in the bootleg group a while back in 2019, and this one's graded 75, but this is kind of an unpainted scheme. There are also ones with some black paint that's very poorly applied, but this is just a great figure. I believe I picked this one up also from Jason, who's one of the longtime collectors within the bootleg group. And I paid a lot of money for it at the time, and it's probably come back down to what I paid for. After jumping up even higher, it's kind of come back down to about what I paid for it. So, $200 to $250 is about what the going rate is for one of these now. But a very nice example, and that's the only Mexican I brought out for today. But I just wanted to show you a few character runs I've got for my 1980s and 1990s bootlegs, and we're going to finish this video off before we wrap it up with some Chewbacca's. And this one is a static, unarticulated Chewbacca. This is kind of the early first set of the static bootlegs made in Poland that kind of came out in the 1985 range, somewhere in there, 1986 maybe, and kind of the same set as the Luke Farm Boys that I just showed you. But this one's got a blue pouch, one of the most common color combinations. There's black Chewbacca's, very black paint, lighter paint scheme. I mean, I've seen collections of these where guys have like 10 of them in a row, and they're all different, with different colored pouches and different colored paint around the bandolier. But this one's graded 70, and a very common color combination. The most common are the blue and the orange pouch and bandoliers, but there are certainly others that are out there. And then in terms of all of these bootlegs that I'm showing you, this is probably the most desirable one. This is the Turkish Uze bootleg, again, incomplete. This is just the figure. He did come with a bowcaster. And it's very pricey when 100% complete. But this one is graded 85, and as you see on the label there, it says no weapon. So we can get a better focus there. There we go. 1985, no weapon. These kind of came out in 1988 by a company called SB Products, Uze Turkish bootlegs. But what's unique about the Turkish bootlegs is, number one, that they're very, very expensive mint on card. I mean, they can easily go into 4 figures mint on card in high grade condition. The blisters were glued onto the card back, so they're very fragile. The other thing that's unique about these Turkish bootlegs is that they're very high quality. As you can see, the figure is in, I should have brought out a licensed Chewbacca for comparison's sake, but as you can see, the plastics used, the sonic welding, the arm and leg articulation, everything about it is very, very high quality, and one of the better bootleg lines that's out there, but you're going to be paying a lot of money for them. They're very, very expensive, even loose and incomplete like this. But just a few more examples I wanted to show in my collection as part of this giveaway. Again, thank you to Matthew K. for sending over this Oritet Russian bootleg Bossk based on the Power of the Force 2 mold. In hot pink, he looks like he's ready for some jazzercise back in the 1980s. But we'll do a giveaway on this. All you got to do is like the video, be a subscriber, and either leave a comment or question below, and I'll do a drawing in the next week or so, and I'll ship it anywhere in the world at my expense. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.